This is the Foy Jr. Show, where faith, truth, and courage come together. Join us as we explore life's deeper purpose and carry the torch of conviction. The show begins now.
Folks, welcome to the Foy Jr. Show. I'm pumped up today. I've got a guest on. I've been trying to get on the show for the last 6 months. He's busy. He travels a lot. He's got the economy and COVID and building homes that he's dealing with and supply chain issues and trying to balance his family and work life and everything else. I've got Bob Marini from Marini Homes in the Capital Region in Upstate New York. Bob is here at location in Anna Maria Island, Florida. And before we get started, I also want to thank Marini Homes and thank you, Bob, for sponsoring the Foy Rush YouTube series. Everyone, if you haven't seen it, we have 14 episodes live. Go to YouTube, search for Foy Rush, or go to buddyfoyjr.com, and you can find it up there. Bob, tell us a little bit about the company, give the audience a scale of what you do in the housing business.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me down here. It's beautiful. I'm about 1,100 miles from my home base, and it feels good to be in 75-degree weather as opposed to sleet and freezing rain. My company was started by my grandfather back in 1940.
Third generation.
Third generation, yeah. And if you want to count my children, it's actually 4 generations in the business now. But we've been building homes in the Capital Region since 1947, 75 years. We've built over 4,000 homes in the Capital Region. It's fun business. You get to meet a lot of great people, a lot of successful business people, and we just have fun with it. And we've been perfecting that craft for 75 years. My grandfather used to build all brick homes. And I have.
Was your grandfather a mason?
He was, yeah, and he immigrated here from Italy, settled in Yonkers, worked in a couple of factories during the Depression.
Wow. Moved
Moved up here to Albany, started building houses. That's how we got started. And I have documents that from the homes that he built in the 1940s, and it's kind of amazing how you see the sales price of a home at $5,500.
Wow.
You know. And then he lists all of his expenses that was used to build the home. I think he made about $500 a house.
No kidding.
Back in the 40s, yeah.
Now, is the percentage on the sale about the same as it is today?
No, so that maybe was about 7-8%, and he didn't even deduct his labor out of that number.
Wow.
Yeah, that was just after he paid all of his.
That was his gross margin.
After he paid all of his hard costs. You know, typically in the home building business today, in order to stay in business, you got to operate on about a 20% gross margin. So if you're doing, $30 million a year in sales, you got to do $6 million gross, and then you got to pay for your overhead and your sales cost and everything out of that. So our business is not much different. It's very highly it's very capital intensive, right? Sometimes we're out $8 to $10 million buying the land, putting the pipes in the ground to build the roads. Then we get a building permit, and it takes us 6 months to build a house. So sometimes it's 2 years before we collect back our first dollar on that $10 million investment. Yeah,
I tell you. So Bob and I talk a lot about politics. In the last podcast, I promised the listeners, Bob, that I would take him through our Trump sit down.
Oh, that was great.
Now we're going to tease you all with that. You're going to hang out here to the end of the podcast to listen. I figured I might as well have the guy who invited me and got me in the door. And we'll talk about how we felt about the event and share our event at Mar-a-Lago 2 weeks ago. All right, so I'm excited to have Bob here. In true fashion of business and politics, we're going to dive into both because Bob and I talk about politics all the time. We talk about business a lot. He'll send me at least every other week what's going on with the housing costs and the lumber costs, etc. So from a business perspective, I'd love to unpack the generational and how you guys successfully went 4 generations without killing each other. Okay, that's a hard thing to do.
It is.
And then, getting to the inflation conversation and the economy and home sales today, advice for young entrepreneurs coming up, young kids in college, and then we'll dive into a political conversation and talk about our event at Mar-a-Lago. Does that sound good?
Yep. I think what's going to shock your listeners the most is the inflation that's taking off and in my business today and how it's affecting home buyers. And then you step away from that and you take a deeper dive into what people have to face every single day between putting gasoline in their cars, going to the grocery store, heating their homes, and different things like that. But when I uncover what is going on in the home building business and the cost, the input costs, and how they've risen, people are going to be amazed.
Wow. So before we get into that, Bob, and I am amazed by what you share with me with the numbers, with windows and doors, and I got a restaurant in Sarasota that we're trying to open up. By the way, Bob and I are in Florida right now at our Anna Maria location broadcasting the show, and we're having issues, Bob, in Sarasota with getting permits stamped because of the continuation of changing materials on a job with a couple hundred different jobs going on, then the permitting process having to get started all over. Maybe that's not the right term, but they got to submit changes for the permits because of materials.
Right, you file for permits based on a certain construction specification, and now that's changing. So now you got to go in and amend the permit for the new material that you're putting in the building, and it's all got to be approved by the architect and the engineer and everybody else.
So it's getting expensive on all sides, and the big expense, and I'm sure you deal with it, is the time. As you delay these projects, you have a certain calendar in mind that you're going to put the money out there.
I just got done doing a 38-unit apartment building in Clifton Park, New York, and COVID delayed me about 7 months on this project. And the funny thing is when you build these things, I got 2 years of interest-only loan to build it and
sell it,
rent it, stabilize it. So we rent it, and then that converts to a permanent mortgage. Well, usually when you do these things, you have about 6 months worth of interest only while you're leasing it up. And I just burned off all the interest only, and I just started filling the building up. So COVID really did a number with us on that,
Now, how does that, when you deal with the COVID and you get through COVID, would you say that you came on the other, well, New York's still in COVID, no?
Yes. Well, if you want to talk about liberal politics and you want to get off on that tangent, yeah, it's still in COVID. You got to wear a mask indoors. There's a mandatory mask mandate that Governor Hochul said she was going to evaluate at the end of January.
Now, does it affect your labor force?
No, it hasn't, other than the fact that people, when they get COVID, they got to stay home for 5 days, and that kind of delays things.
5 versus the 10 that it used to be.
Right. But she now has she's extended that mask mandate through the end of February.
Even with no science out there?
With no science. And then she says she's going to evaluate it then, which means what she's going to do? She's going to extend it into March.
Yeah. Well, you and I have been talking about this. We predicted another shutdown in Florida happening this year.
I thought that was going to happen.
Me too.
Yeah.
I mean, she definitely telegraphed it. I mean, electric surgery, right? Elective surgery. That's on hold in the hospitals now in New York.
Well, one of the things is I was listening to Kill Me this morning when I was driving here to see you, and they're talking about these statistics about these people who have died because they put off cancer surgery. Right. They put off some of these elective surgeries, and it actually has deteriorated their health, which caused other problems, which caused people to die as opposed to COVID. It's been more harmful to shut things down than it was to keep things open.
Well, and so the latest research out that got released yesterday, and by the way, it got released this week, was the COVID lockdown and all these restrictions. What it did is it saved 0.2% or 0.02%. I've seen 2 different reports. Mm-hmm. Either way, it's either 0.2% or 0.02% lives it saved with these insanely dictated communist lockdowns.
It hurt a lot of people. It hurt a lot of businesses. There was no reason for it. I'm on a local talk show up in the Albany area with Paul Vandenberg, and I got to tell you, Paul and I had from the beginning had called this whole thing a hoax.
Yep, me too. I'm with you.
And I firmly believe that this was crafted on some level to get rid of Trump. Yep. And, if you remember correctly, it was stop the spread, 15 days to stop the spread. Right. In 15 days turned into 2 years.
That's right.
And you don't deal with it much down here in Florida because, you got a Governor, Ron DeSantis, that does a great job.
Which is why we came down here.
This place is free as you can get. But you go up in New York, it's oppressive.
Well, New Yorkers are starting to come down here. And you can tell the New Yorkers when they're in the room, right? We get bad reviews because we're not wearing masks. We get bad reviews because we're not social distancing, and they want to bring their paranoia down to Florida from New York.
It happened in the suburbs. When you get into upstate New York, they all used to be Republican based, And then as the people migrated north out of the city of Albany and out of New York City, and they started to come up into Saratoga, and you probably even see it up in Bolton Landing, right, with the chateau up in Bolton.
Oh yeah,
they bring their politics with them, and it changes the dynamic and the fabric of those communities. And now they're mostly Democratic.
Well, here in Florida, for the first time in the history of Florida, there's more registered Republican voters than there are Democrat voters for the first time ever in the state history.
As I like to say, if you're coming to this area, leave your politics where you came from. Right?
Don't New York, my Florida was a T-shirt that I saw.
Assimilate to what we have here, right? Don't bring your politics here.
Well, what I do tell people, though, and then we'll get back on the business, Florida, Ron DeSantis did not win by a landslide. Like, he just won. It was a very tight race. So Florida was literally a handful of votes away from being a lockdown state.
Ron DeSantis.
Think about that.
Ron DeSantis was elected because Trump endorsed him.
That's right. And that's something that we talked about at
Mar-a-Lago.
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 Yeah, so I tell people, listen, the Florida was not that red as everyone thinks it is, because of the election that Ron DeSantis went through was a tight race. Then Trump endorsed him. It took him to another level. But the reality is even the results of the election was tight. So Florida was that would have been another blue lockdown state.
Yep.
I wouldn't be here opening restaurants.
That's right.
And think about the amount of jobs that would be impacted in Florida had it not been a red state.
I believe that there's a bigger force at work here behind the scenes, controlled by this this green movement, in the name of the environment, and all these radical left Democrats are trying to push an agenda, and I haven't quite figured it out yet, but I think you're starting to see the effects of what's really happening because of the cost of things we have to. First of all, the only thing worse than paying a higher cost for something is not being able to get it.
Yep, amen.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, I'm waiting. I just got word the other day. Anderson Windows has just moved the production of black windows. They're very popular in modern farmhouse style homes. 10 months to get black exterior clad windows.
And is it really 10 months or is it a year?
It's 10 months.
10 months. So what do you do, Bob?
Regular white windows. Regular white vinyl windows that we used to get. We used to wait 8 weeks for them. 21 weeks now.
So what do you do?
For normal windows. Well, our production system puts those purchase orders in the hands of our suppliers months before we need them. So typically it's not a problem, but waiting 10 months for windows is a problem. So now we have to adjust. Maybe we have to take that modern farmhouse style off of the menu so that people can't choose it because we can't get the product for it.
Now, is there any delay in manufacturing on your end or building the homes because of these delays? Have you witnessed that? I mean, you mentioned the apartment building being behind. Are any of your houses behind?
Yeah, we're behind on average 3 to 4 months on a house.
That's about what I'm behind with opening a restaurant down here in Florida.
Yep.
So it's across the board. It's everybody.
But what's interesting is I started to see costs increase in August of 2020. And some of the price increases in August of 2020 was a reaction of natural market forces, right? Not enough supply, too much demand. So naturally you're going to increase the price of a home to try and quell that demand and balance it out. But the other 50% of that component, I started to see costs increasing in my business, and I actually got behind the curve. And so from August of 2020, in April of 21, I didn't touch prices from August of 20 until April of 21, and that's when lumber went from.
So I'm sorry, say that date one more time.
So from August of 2020, until April of 2021, I didn't touch prices.
You left your prices the same.
I raised them in August, and I thought that was good. And historically, I don't raise my prices a lot. We've got consistency in pricing, and usually you'll get a little bit of an increase here or there every year from your suppliers and your subs, but nothing like I'm seeing right now. And so in April of 2021, lumber went from about $350 to $400 a board foot, 1,000 board feet, to $1,700.
What?
It went up fivefold, 5x. And so what that did is that put me way behind the curve. So now it's costing me an extra $30,000 a house to buy lumber. When those price increases get to me, and I'm calling for lumber, it's an extra $30,000 a house.
That's your margin hit.
Oh yeah, it was really bad. So, but here's the interesting thing now. Lumber between April and November skyrocketed. Then it corrected. It came down. It retraced about 50%. But in that 50% retracement, everything else went up and more than doubled what the compensation was, what the reduction in lumber was.
So other components of your building.
So heating and air conditioning, furnaces, they had 3 price increases last year. We had windows and exterior doors, vinyl siding, roofing, sheetrock, insulation, everything that goes into concrete, everything that goes into a house was going up where normally you would see 2 to 3% a year. We're seeing 30, 40, 50% price increases.
So do you pull the throttle back in that?
Yeah, I actually shut down sales. I couldn't get control of it fast enough, so I just had to pause my sales until I could figure out what was going on. Now, here's the interesting thing. From August 5th, now here's a house that I built. It's a 2,400 square foot, 2.5 bath, four bedroom home, 2-car garage, full basement. It was $395,000 in August of 2020.
$395,000.
Yeah. On January 12th of 22, just a couple weeks ago,
yeah.
$514,000. So it goes
What?
from $395,000 to $514,000.
So does that change the demographic you're selling to?
No, they're still there. The low interest rates hasn't stopped the buyer from buying the house. But once we start getting an uptick in interest rates, it's going to hurt. So what does that mean to the average buyer of a new home, right? So at the $395,000 number, you take a 30-year mortgage, right? 3.5%. Principal and interest on that is $1,439 a month. You take the new number of $514,000. Put the same 3.5% 30-year mortgage on it, it goes to $1,848. It's an increase of $409 a month.
It's a car payment.
That's
taxes.
Right. It's $4,800 a year, and that doesn't include increases in insurance. It doesn't include increases in your property taxes. That's just to pay for the house.
Wow.
It's a big number.
So how your demographic for that price of a home at the high threes? Is that a new married couple that are just got a job, their first or second jobs?
Yeah, generally we have really 2 segment markets, right? We have a lot of ranch plans for the empty nesters, right? These people that we call snowbirds,
retirement,
that want to own a home in New York, and upstate, and they'll come down here for the winter, right? And these are pretty much maintenance-free homes. We take care of that portion of the market, and then we also take care of usually not so much first-time home buyers, but second and third move-up type of home buyers that are young families, right? And they're moving out of that split ranch or that Cape Cod into something bigger in the suburbs, right?
Yeah. Oh.
And
expanding their family, maybe.
Right, exactly. And that's typically my buyer. But what you're going to see now, and so that was the supply side of the inflation. It just went ballistic.
And that's inflation due to labor increasing and labor shortage because of the mandates.
Right. Labor shortage, right? What's interesting now is so those were all input costs for materials. So those are supply chain restrictions. That's not being able to get product from the port to the factory to make the product that needs to go into the house. What's happening now, and if you want to go back and study inflation in the late 70s, because I lived it in early 80s.
The gas line.
Right. What happened now is the labor component of inflation started to take off, because now when you have somebody working for you for $20 an hour and all of a sudden they're paying double at the pump for gas, right?
Grocery store. And
they see the effect of their wage being eroded by this inflation, they come to you and say, I can't work for you for $20 an hour anymore. I need 25. I need 28. And so as an employer, if it's a good employee, you got to pay that price. So now you got to go back to the people that you're working for and say, hey, I have to raise my price just for my labor component now. We did the material thing 6 months ago,
right, now
last month. Now I got to deal with my labor. And so now you have another kick in inflation, and that's the one that really gets away from you when you start talking about inflation.
Especially if you're in a GM, you're in the middle of a project. You're just throwing. I hate to say throwing raises out, but what do you do?
Friday, I had a meeting because we have a lot of rental properties and some light industrial properties that we rent to tenants, and I have one landscaping company that takes care of all this, and they've been doing it for years. And I had a conversation with the owner of the business on Friday morning, and he felt bad. He had to come in and explain to me why he had to raise his prices 23%.
To you?
To me.
That's his labor. He's got gas.
Yeah. We have one community where there's 160 units, and it's kind of spread out, so there's a lot of grass to mow. There's a lot of grass to fertilize and mulch and edging and all that kind of stuff. And that project was around $90,000 for landscape maintenance for the whole season. It just went up to $120,000.
My God. And who absorbs that?
Well, so now what we've been doing is rents have been going up because of the cost of housing. So this pendulum swings, right? The real estate market, buying a home goes up. The rental market, because there's a shortage of high-quality rentals now, no matter where you go. And the effects, I think, are greater down here because I've heard stories of people where rents have gone from $3,000 to $5,000 overnight, literally. That doesn't happen where we are.
It's happening on the East Coast a lot in Florida.
And, we're now getting, instead of a 3% increase, we're getting an 8 to 10% increase in our rents.
And now, does this change when you talk? You're bringing up a lot of what I'm going through, but in a different industry, right? So we're looking at opening a new restaurant. We're looking at dishware and side plates, etc. So we're redoing our menu. We're going to do our menu where we're going to decompose or deconstruct our dishes. Where you want mushrooms, you got to order them. We can no longer put them in a dish up front. It's going to be up to the consumer how much they want to spend, right? Now that requires more dishes, and we're sitting there looking at things. We're literally saying, okay, how long does it take to wash this dish? We love the dish. It looks beautiful, but it's too hard to wash. I don't have enough dishwashers. So when you're thinking about landscaping going up, do you start looking at your projects going, you know what? We're going to do stone, not grass. Like, does it start changing the way we do business overall?
It's a consideration. And everything that we do design-wise now, we tear things inside and out and look at it and say, do we really need this?
Wow.
And if the answer is no, we eliminate it.
So nice-to-haves are gone.
They're gone.
Yeah, I just had the conversation with my wife about the windows. At our new location, first of all, our new location we wanted to open up in December. We were hoping March. Now we're probably not going to open until October because I'm in a little bit of a pickle, Bob.
Down here, you have to play the seasonal game,
and I got to get open before I get back to New York with my crew, my New York staff.
Yep.
So if I open down here in May, now I got a gun to my head in a month to open down here, replace my New York staff, get them back on the lake in Lake George. And that just creates a major problem for me. So we're probably out to October. And then Jen's like, well, so now my wife being a creative designer starts saying, okay, well, that gives me more time to design and you get more creative. No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
Things are too expensive. We can't throw more money at this because there's more. We got to wait longer to open. I got to carry the rent. And all of a sudden, she starts having a conversation about pretty doors and bifolds, et cetera, et cetera. The nut goes up another $100,000.
We used to build, there's projects that I just finished that if I had to get in the ground with these projects today and build them, it wouldn't pencil out. The project would lose money.
Really?
So you got to shelve it. You got to wait for your input costs to come back down. And I got news for you. I don't believe I've never had people come to me and say, "Hey, you know what? We've oversupplied the market, and therefore your sheetrock price is going to come down by 25%." I've never seen that happen.
Right.
So I call this the great reset in terms of inflation and pricing, and a lot of this was all brought on by the far left liberals and the Democrats and the engineering that they did on this economy by shutting it down. See, that's the effect that is just rearing its ugly head right now. And the fact that they have to come out with these massive spending bills. And you know as well as I do, when there's too many dollars chasing too few goods, that's the match that ignites inflation.
That's right.
And we're just beginning to we're in like the third inning of this.
Well, how about the money we're printing?
Yeah.
The printing of money in the last 2 years, if you're going to do a graph that shows the hockey stick, we would have to remove the 3 floors above us to do a whiteboard.
That's right. And yeah,
it's literally straight up. So where does, I had a conversation last night. Being in the restaurant business, you get to talk to a lot of people, right, in a lot of different industries. And I think what I talked about last night when we talked about this new report that's out, that all these restrictions really did nothing. Okay, someone said to me, "Well, how many lives is 0.2%?" I'm like, "Wait a minute, we're not even calculating in there the deaths that took place because people couldn't have surgery, because we're not including in there the psychological damage to our children because they were locked in a bedroom." I moved my kid to Florida. We got out and put her down here. Bolton Landing was a little different. I don't want to get too much into that, but they did stay open. And they're in New York. They're upstate. They stayed open with the masks on. I appreciate that. But a lot of kids were stuck in their bedrooms. There no sports, etc. So we're not even calculating in the fallout of that. But here's what really upsets me. I do believe we've had a gigantic culture shift in our country through these mandates. Call it 20% of society, 30% of society, whatever you want to call it. You see them walking down the street with a mask on outside. You see people in Florida. There's no helmet law. They're wearing masks on their motorcycles, Bob.
With no helmet.
Yeah. Right. So you see people in their cars by themselves wearing masks. And no, they're not Uber drivers. I look for the Uber tag.
Right.
So you've got this nutty culture, this almost cult-like culture that has come out, and they believe they have more rights than me and you do. And what's the long-term effect on that, on all our economy and our businesses, etc.?
And if you don't wear a mask, you're a racist, and somehow you're insensitive to the people that they're trying to protect, right? So these people make no sense at all. They want to argue from an emotional point of view and not from a factual one.
Correct.
And that's the problem with this country right now, is these people are given too much leeway in the media. I mean, you go on TikTok and you look at some of these people that are on TikTok. I want to grind my teeth against a chalkboard because I don't understand it.
That's right.
Right?
Well, look at the attack on Joe Rogan. So Joe Rogan had 2 doctors on. One owns 9 patents of the RNMA. I had it in the podcast a couple weeks ago. I'll put it in the show notes what the actual vaccine is. Pardon me, folks. Dr. Malone. And it's a 3-hour podcast, Bob. It took me 5 days to listen to it. 3-hour podcast, and it was the whole podcast was a soundbite. You know how you like to clip some sounds or take some notes? Forget it.
Right.
It's 3 hours of content. That's all that's all notes, right? Vaccines for dummies, I would call it, or the lockdown for dummies. And he takes us through all the scientific data. And Joe Rogan is now being threatened to be shut down on Spotify because of disinformation. You get people on The View talking about him. You got Neil Young, right?
Who's Neil Young anyway?
Who's
He's
Neil
all
Young?
washed up, yeah.
Right? You have Neil Young's younger version of himself dying right now, that he's not standing up against the big corporate machine, right? The big government agency.
Yeah.
And the reality is, who of these people actually sat there and listened to Joe Rogan for 3 hours? None of them.
And Neil
But they
Young,
want to shut him down.
And Neil Young, back in the prime of his career, he was anti-government. He was a protester.
Right.
Right?
All these people. It's wild. So I do believe, I've said it before, I think I said it to you, I believe that, and I said it to my Democratic friends, and this podcast, we talk to people that are busy like you and I, that aren't necessarily as involved in politics as much as you and I are. You and I consume this stuff 24/7, and we talk about it a lot.
Yeah, we consume it because we're around it every single day.
Well,
I mean, we're faced with it every day.
But a lot of people don't. A lot of people that are busy running in and out of Manhattan, running their jobs, don't feel like they have time to do it. That's why I do this podcast, to kind of download it to them, as well as we talk to college kids. And, Bob, I have said, I do, and I want to say it again here, there's a couple things I'd like to say. First of all, I do think we'll be I used to say socialist nation. I believe we'll be a communist nation in 10 years or less. I really do believe that. I believe there should be a two-party system. I do believe in Republicans and Democrats. I believe in the Democrats of my grandfather. Okay? I don't want one of the parties to be a communist party. Right? I don't want the Republican Party, then the Communist Party. So I do believe in all that. And talking to the Democrats out there that are listening, and talking to the college kids to help them navigate their professors, this lockdown, when it came to the risk of our businesses, Bob, and seeing a new statistic of 0.2% effectiveness, I truly believe, Bob, if Hillary Clinton won the election, the lockdowns never would have happened. It would have been a bad flu season.
Perhaps.
I truly believe that.
I would not disagree with that. And while we're talking about point two, and let's assume it's not 0.02, and let's assume it's 0.2 because that's the higher number.
Right.
That means that it didn't affect 99.8% of the population.
Imagine.
And so we went through these exercises and this pain and suffering. And let's not even get into what it's still doing to these kids that are going to school that have to mask up. In New York City, if it's above 32 degrees, you got to go outside and eat your lunch.
That's for the kids.
Yes.
Still. It's unbelievable.
And so these kids now are suffering long-term consequences of having to put these masks on. They can't go to school. They can't see anybody's face, their nose, their mouth. They can't see any expression, no emotion. It's emotionless. They have difficulties learning. Some are suffering from depression.
Which is the future of our country.
Eating disorders, right? Drug use, alcoholism. All these things are happening to these kids, and it shouldn't happen.
All in the name of political warfare.
Yes.
All in the name of political warfare.
It drives me crazy.
Yep.
I got a granddaughter that's next year. She's going to go to preschool, and we're already talking about alternative forms of preschool. Like even if we went out and got an educator and we got a bunch of people that we knew and we put together our own makeshift school so that these kids don't have to be in masks, that's what we're prepared to do.
Now, I do believe that this dramatically impacted our businesses, and I do believe that a lot of the country now knows that. So for the first time in our nation, there shouldn't be a whole lot of debate over the different political sides and what the agendas are. At least I hope.
There shouldn't be. There shouldn't be a difference. But given where we are right now in terms of how far radical the left wants to push things.
Exactly.
And the media gives them the platform to do it.
100%.
It doesn't go away.
Yep.
It stays here. I do believe that what's going on here, in my business in particular, is going to have, not in 22, but in 23, there's a winter coming. There's a recession coming. There's a lot of houses across the country that are in the pipeline, things that have been approved or getting approved and are going to go under construction. Apartment projects, and I'm talking the Sun Belt too. It's going to happen down here. Just like they overbuilt the housing market in South Florida during the financial crisis, 2009, 2010.
Oh, yeah. I know a couple of people got
you couldn't give a house away.
Yeah, my father had 3 condos on this island.
Houses got cut in half. I remember I was up in Palm Beach at the time, right? And the related companies was building City Place. They had whole floors of condominiums that were for sale, and they were trying to package them up 10 at a time. And you could buy them for $200,000 a door. They're back up to $500,000-$600,000 a door right now.
So you think that's going to happen in Florida again? You think there's going to be
I think it's going to happen nationwide.
Now, even though the mass migration of Florida, because we don't have a lot of inventory.
Yeah, but there's a lot of inventory in the pipeline. Okay, so no matter how you slice it across the country, see, builders are no different than anybody else. We're creatures of habit, and we're creatures of tending to, when things are good, we overproduce. And when we overproduce, we create an inventory that's out there. And so what you got to realize, too, is that the Fed is withdrawing liquidity from the market, right? They're going to raise interest rates. And if you take interest rates from a 3.5% to 4 to 4.25%, that's going to pull people out of the market.
But it's supposed to rate inflation.
I heard the statistic the other day, 75% of America has mortgages below 4%.
Wow. So
now when you take mortgage rates and you shove them up over 4, let's call it 4.5%, there's people are disincentivized to replace that 3.5%, that 3%, that 2.75% mortgage
with a new house.
With 4.5%. Right?
Yeah.
And so that
and a refinancing won't happen to take equity out, which stimulates the economy.
Correct. So you have all this product, and it doesn't happen overnight. It could take 2 years. But as the product builds the inventory and the people withdraw from the market because of other external forces, it could be interest rates, right? It could be the fact that houses got so expensive and the affordability index has dropped to the floor and nobody can afford them, right?
And that could leave a lot of inventory on the market.
And the other phenomena that's taking over is single family homes for rent. I'm
Okay.
sure a lot of your listeners have gone out there and seen this concept of single-family detached homes for rent. There are business models and companies that are funded for the purpose of buying up single-family detached homes and renting them. There's a model. There's a model that where this works.
Renting them on a long-term, year-to-year basis.
Yes.
Not Airbnb.
And so what happens
Or both,
is
probably.
when these guys see the peak in the market and they want to push that inventory from rental to sale because they can cash out, they can make money on these units, that's more inventory that gets added to the market. You see how the inventory starts to build now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so you'll have a correction in pricing. It'll take a good recession. You got all this inventory that's getting pushed on the market. Then what happens is the lenders, they want to back out of the market. They don't want to loan on these projects anymore because the risk factor has gone up. And so now the liquidity for building new stuff dries up, and you got this overhang of supply. Prices have to come down.
Now, the difference is, that's phenomenal. And the difference between, when we talk about a financial crisis, with the interest rates rising at the last housing crash, a lot of people are holding interest-only product. Is that still a thing now, interest-only consumer loans?
No, but on the commercial side, you have interest only. But on the housing side,
So these people are in their homes with fixed rates.
very rarely do you see anybody getting an interest-only loan. Okay.
So that's one checkbox that's for the better that could avoid a housing crisis.
Right. But when on the commercial side, there's a lot of properties that are financed with interest-only loans, whether they're multifamily apartment projects, light industrial buildings.
So rent goes up.
Well, when those things start to reset, so let's just say, for example, I've got an interest-only 10-year loan.
Yeah.
At the end of that 10-year period, if interest rates are double, and I financed it at 3%, and now interest rates are 6% after that 10-year period, I'm going to have problems going out and refinancing that thing because I'm not going to meet my debt coverage ratio that the lenders require me to meet, which means now I have to put up more equity in the building, right?
How do you do that?
Well, it's cash, but there's some people out there, that are underfunded, let's say, or undercapitalized, and when it comes time to do that, to have to cough up more cash to refinance that project, or they got to raise the rents because if your rents are factored in down here at a 3% interest rate, and now you're paying 6%, something's got to change, right? That the person in that building who's renting that from you has to pay more money.
Right.
So it's an interesting dynamic. It's happened before, but it's happened throughout the last 100 years. And you can't always go on a chart. If you look at a chart, right, like look at the NASDAQ right now, it goes from the lower left to the upper right. It just keeps going up. Mm-hmm. And it has been that way for the last 10 years. Well, that trend eventually has to reverse.
Well, I mean, I think the biggest difference is the new ingredient or the influencer in the equation is the government, right? Getting involved with our staff and increasing and inflate. Our wages increased based on competition with government, not with each other, Bob.
No doubt about it.
So what's that impact? Because we're paying people more wages. All of us, restaurant people and new builders and landscapers, we did it because the government had them collecting a kicker that of what, $600, $400, whatever it was.
Yeah, well, they paid them to stay home.
Paid them to stay home.
Yeah.
So now we got to incentivize them to get off their couch and come to work. So that the government competed against us for the increase of wages. So it's really a false increase of wages. It's not based on our industries booming and our profit margins going up. It's based on a third party getting involved, which is the government.
Right. And the interesting thing too is my business is a long cycle process. From the time I sign a contract to obtain a building permit to build the house to moving the customer in, that process could take anywhere from 7 to 12 months, right?
Right.
And I have no idea what's going to happen to my costs in those 7 to 12 months. Historically, I did, but I don't anymore. And so now you see some builders coming out with escalation clauses in their contracts. They're benchmarked against a certain price, and if they bench them at X and they exceed Y, they pass it on to the customer. I haven't done that yet. I don't think that there's.
How do you know your customers can afford it?
Well, that's the problem. Is if you have a customer that's
They sign it. Okay, I'll pay it, but they can't.
They're putting a minimum amount down, and all of a sudden you come to them and you hand them a bill for $10,000 at the end, and they don't have the $10,000. The bank's not giving it to them. So what happens? Right? You got a problem. So there's some complications with that kind of rationale, but my cycle time is very long. Yours is short, right? So you pretty much know week to week what your input costs are based on the prices that they're charging, and you put those meals on the table and people pay you, right? I'd love to hear from you, buddy. Like if you had a steak on your menu that you charged $40 for a year ago, what do you have to charge for that steak today?
$65.
Right. And yet
it cost me $32 today. It cost me $11 2 years ago.
And I think that this is one of the things.
Bob, I shut down my online ordering. Shut my meals. I have there's a specific amount of customers that were loyal. Those are the only ones we're going to ship to, and because we couldn't afford between Fed. And by the way, what happened here is FedEx is understaffed. So now, have you ever tried to FedEx a package recently? They listen. We can't guarantee it tomorrow.
Right.
What do you mean you can't guarantee it tomorrow? I'm paying you. Yeah, but the guarantee's gone. So now I got food being shipped in Florida. They can't guarantee. One day spoils the food. So it just right, and that's all because of the labor shortage. That is because of the mandates, because of the shutdown of the economy, because of the kickers to the consumer or the labor people that are collecting unemployment. So my whole business model here, we got to look into it week to week. The challenge is when you build a menu, you're usually doing it for a month, okay, and you put it on an autopilot. Now my chef and I get together once a week, and we go through the invoices. The challenge is he's understaffed. So does he have time to go through the invoices? We're cooking, we're prepping, we're bussing tables. It's a very difficult environment to manage.
And the point I'm trying to make here is this. I'm sure you, like a lot of other restaurateurs, have kind of delayed that move, that jump in prices by doing other things to compensate, to offset.
As long as
because
we could.
You're probably afraid that if that $40 steak goes to $65, you're going to scare a lot of people away.
Yeah, I call it the price tolerance.
Yeah. And so I think what's happening right now is we're reaching critical mass in that point where the person does come to the restaurant and they do see that $40 steak at $65 and they're saying, what the heck is going on here? Right?
Yeah, well,
why am I seeing such an increase? Yep. But a lot of people don't understand what the forces behind your business that cause that are the forces behind my business. They don't get it because they don't deal with it every single day on the front lines. And I think what you're starting to see now more and more is this stuff is churning up in news, in the media,
right?
And we're getting back to those days where we used to have this misery index, right? Remember from the Carter years?
Absolutely.
Well, I think you're going to start to hear that term more and more over the next 3 or 4 years.
We see the misery index in our reviews. People do give reviews in a pandemic, believe it or not, at 2 and 1 star.
Well, I remember one time I went to your restaurant at 240 pounds and I walked out at 220 because it took me so long to get my meal.
It takes Bob for it's Marini's table. Oh wait, don't worry. I'm like, what are you talking about? Get the guy his damn dinner. That's Mark. Mark, I'm going to get you for this one.
Right.
So, all right. Back to what you just said with the timing. We increased our prices before the grocery stores did, and I had a fallout of a couple customers, a handful, and they start talking at the country clubs and in town, and they got back to me. My mother came to me. I said, "Mom, what do you? I'm not getting rich off this stuff. I made zero money last year because labor was up in the high 40s, food was in the high 30s, and that's your margin in the restaurant industry, right? Your food should be at 25 to 30, your labor should be at 25 to 30, and then you run your fixed costs, and hopefully you come out of this thing with 10 to 15 points.
And everything else is based on volume, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
So the reality is with us, we were the restaurant industry that didn't have buying power, right? I'm not talking about the chains. The restaurant industry that didn't have buying power, 1, 2, 3 unit operators. We were ahead of the inflation in regards to it hit us quicker. When you were in the grocery stores, and I come from a retail background at Calvin Klein in the fashion industry, when a retailer had a problem, they made the problem the supplier's problem. for a period of time, Bob, right? So look, we got an issue. There's a high theft issue in our store at 5 locations. We have 15% of the merchandise being stolen. And you, the provider of my inventory, you're going to take a hit on your margin for 60 days while I figure out how to fix it. And if you don't take a hit and give me a discount on your goods, this is the retailer. If you don't take a hit, I'm not going to buy your merchandise. I'll go to someone else. So essentially, you're going to pay me, and you're going to lose money to do business with me for the next 60 days while I figure out my problem. It is my problem, not yours, Mr. Calvin Klein. But nevertheless, I write the check to buy your jeans. So you're going to take the hit. And I do believe at the grocery store level with consumer goods, meat and proteins, etc., I do believe for a good 90 days, the big power retailers turn to the vendors and say, look, I have people waiting in line to do business with me. Increase my prices 10%, or increase them at all, nothing at all for 30 days. I'll increase them by 10 or 12% at the store level. Let me build a purse up, and then and hopefully it'll go down and this conversation will be over. Right. But if it increases after 30 days, we'll start increasing my prices at the consumer, and then you, vendor, will start increasing them to me. So 90 days after we started getting hammered for our price increases, the local grocery stores, steaks were going from $9 to $22. Like,
double,
giant jumps, right? So if it catches up eventually to everybody.
That's what we're seeing now in the home building business. And I, as well as a lot of other home builders, had that same power with a lot of our suppliers. We would be able to get them to forestall a price increase. No, I can't afford it right now. Or you got to lock in the next 6 months of my production and then make the increase take place after that. I can't get that anymore. Right?
Because they'll be out of business.
The other thing is competitive forces. You take a plumbing company, for example. You got ABC Plumbing doing your plumbing.
Yep.
And XYZ comes in and says, well, you get a lower price. So ABC just raised their price, and XYZ comes in and says, well, I could do that house for $1,000 less.
To get your business.
To get my business. I can't hire him because he's going to be out of business within a year. He can't make money.
Bingo. So he's going to lose money, and you're going to end up with half your house is not plumbed.
Either that plus the other thing is I'm going to end up with maybe 20 houses that are completed, and now I have no plumber to go back and service those customers that are already living in their
houses.
For
the young entrepreneurs listening to this, that's a huge lesson right there. People walking in your door promising you cheaper prices, they're just going to be out of business.
I've seen it 1,000 times. It's happened to me.
That's a great point. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yep.
That's huge. And I say it to my customers. I'm like, listen, if I don't up my prices, you're not going to have a restaurant to go to. That would be irresponsible. And then there's not going to be jobs, and I'm going to get rid of 50 people be unemployed if I am not responsible and increase my prices. Sorry. Then you figure out how to deal with it from there. Now, Bob, back to talking about all these challenges, our country, politically, this could be going on for 20 years as political warfare, right? You're a fourth generation business. I have young kids. For people out there that have younger generation coming up and out of college, are you worried about your kids taking over your business? Like, where's the future hold for us entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I'm worried about it. I'm probably worried about it the same way that my grandfather was worried about my father taking over.
You think?
Right? And if you go back through history and you look at all the things that I saw my grandfather and my father go through, some of these things kind of pale in comparison because there was a lot of unknowns throughout history. You had the Vietnam War, you had the oil embargo, the oil crisis, right? We had the S&L crisis in the 1980s. We had the financial crisis. We had a lot of those crises. But one of the things that's different today than what was different back then is the divisiveness in this country, the divisiveness in politics.
Yeah. They're wanting to flip our nation.
There doesn't seem to be any unity or any common ground in all of that.
It's capitalism or communism?
And I believe that divided, we fall, we implode. And if there's some kind of common ground, but the problem is that the liberal media is one-sided. It's all fake news.
Yeah.
I mean, if it wasn't for Donald Trump, we would have never been exposed to the term fake news.
That's right.
And they have a platform, and they give the progressives and the radicals the entire stage to promote their agenda, and everybody else is anti-climate, racist, and divisive. That's their agenda, and we're talking maybe 20% of the population here.
But they're controlling 90% of the microphone.
Right.
So what do our kids do for business?
And in the universities, because this is a true story, My son was going to a college in Massachusetts, and he was in a philosophy class, and
which is a required mandatory class to take,
Right.
an elective, a liberal art elective. That's all by design.
the first day of class, he walks in and instructs the classroom that he's not a Trump fan. He's a
The
never
professor.
Trump. The professor. He's a never Trumper, and he never wants to hear any of those views espoused in his classroom
Now, why say anything at all as a professor?
because he felt that podium was his, and it was going to be
He took advantage of
his
it.
way or the highway. You know. I said to my son, I said, Tyler, what did you say to this professor? He goes, Dad. Now he's a freshman, right? He's first semester freshman. He's taken back by the comment, but too scared to say anything about
Sure.
it. And I said, well, Tyler, let me tell you what I would have said, given where I've been throughout the course of my life, right? And we all are allowed to speak our point of view in this country,
Amen.
okay? And I'm the one that's writing the check for
We're
that
supposed to be able to start
for that college tuition. I'm the one that's putting the
His
food
food on his table.
table.
That's right.
I was said, excuse me, Mr. Professor. I happen to like Donald Trump, and that's my political view. Your political beliefs have nothing to do in a philosophy classroom.
Amen.
So here's what I'm doing. I'm taking my books back to the bookstore. I'm going to turn them in, and I'm going to go to the bursar, and I'm going to get a refund for this class.
Amen.
And I'm walking out of here.
That's what we got to start doing.
And if this happens more and more in this college, I'm just going to withdraw from the entire college.
All right, so let's stick to that topic, and then we're going to get into our Donald Trump meeting, our event that we went to in Mar-a-Lago 2 weeks ago. Now, that's key right there, right? So people say, what do we do? Customers last night, buddy, what do I do? Right there. Walk out, demand a refund from your class, hold them accountable, right? Run for school board elections, get involved. But you did something else, and we don't have to say the name of it or whatnot, but you were sponsoring, unless you want to.
No,
you were
yeah.
sponsoring something.
I was just going to bring that up, so I'm glad you did. Yeah, so I was sponsoring a university sports venue,
Yep.
and their beliefs in terms of what was going on a couple of years ago with Black Lives Matter and a bunch of different socialist kind of, and then it got into
Very,
COVID.
very progressive.
Then it got into COVID, and masks were a requirement to actually go to the venue, right? And and the players were taking a knee during the national anthem, and that really drove me crazy, you know?
So they have the right to take a knee, but you have the right to do what?
I have a right to withdraw my money from
Amen.
from their program. So I said to the AD, who I'm friends with, I said, look, I want to do this, but I want a clawback provision. I want a clawback provision in my agreement with you that says the first time that I hear that the players are taking a knee during the national anthem, you give me my sponsor money back. And he couldn't do it. He says because we're a state-run institution, we have no control over that. I said, well, I have control over who gets my money.
Amen.
And you can't have it if you can't promise me that.
What happened?
Not only did I do it that way, but there's other people that I know in different colleges and universities. As this story spread, they did the same thing, and it started to affect a little bit of change. One college in particular in our hometown, I have another friend that did the same thing, and all that stuff went away.
See that?
See, when more and more people do that, and you band together, it starts to
Right,
hurt.
you're not canceling them. You're
No.
just not giving them your money.
It starts to hurt from their perspective, right?
yeah.
Their programs are funded based on
On us, our side.
on us, donors that, we believe in the program, we believe in the people that are running the program, but now when that cuts against our values and what we believe in,
Got to stand up for them.
we got to stand up for ourselves,
With our
right?
wallet.
Yeah.
Amen. Now, we talked about Trump, and you
Yeah.
talked about the classroom. Let's pivot to Mar-a-Lago.
What a night that was.
How do you explain? A lot of people ask me, buddy, how was it? How was he? What's your recap of the evening? First of all, it set the setting, right? Mar-a-Lago's gorgeous.
Yes. I've been there before,
I never have.
That was your first time there, and it's overwhelming, to say the least.
Beautiful.
It's 11
Immaculate. Or what's the word?
meticulous.
Meticulous.
Well, Trump is meticulous.
Yeah, my God.
Right? I've heard stories that when he walks onto his 757 airplane, if the carpets aren't vacuumed all the right way, he makes them get the vacuum out and changes them.
Wow.
He gets angry
There's
and stuff like
lines.
that. Yeah. If you ask me in a word or two to describe Donald Trump, I would say real, empathetic, and emotional. Like very passionate. Not just about. He was very passionate that night about the people sitting in that room.
Oh my God, he addressed us
You
by
know?
name.
Right. And so when you think about that night, and you there was
31
only,
of us.
31.
Set in a very intimate setting. I mean,
Right.
it felt like 10.
He talked to us as if like he had known us for a very long time.
That's right.
And he broke things down in a way to us that you don't see him on TV talk about.
Right.
Like how about when he talked about the first night in the White House, which he says is probably the most remarkable property that he's ever been in,
And he was definitely humbled by that.
right? And here's a guy that develops beautiful properties
gold toilets.
all over the world.
It's like
right?
gold toilets.
And he's talking about how this is the most beautiful property that he's ever been in, and having the ability to be able to live there for 4 years.
And stare at what Lincoln stared at.
And he says, the first night I get into the White House and I just stand in awe in front of the Lincoln bedroom, which is a
Yeah.
national monument. And he talked about the emotions that came over him, right, as he stood there, and he couldn't believe that he was in that situation. He was actually there in the White House.
That was a great story.
And so he gave people the floor. They got to ask questions. He was very humble. He was very genuine.
He wasn't in a hurry.
No.
The Secret Service was.
Yeah, we couldn't even get a glass of wine.
Yeah, we'll tell him at the end of the
That's a
podcast
great
about that
story,
one.
too.
So, yeah, one of the things that took me back, and it shouldn't have, that he said, is a question was asked about foreign leaders and who was the most. I don't know if it was. I don't remember the exact question. Do you?
Yeah,
Was it the
who
most,
who was the toughest foreign leader that you ever had to negotiate against?
right? And his answer.
Nancy Pelosi.
Yep. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and who's the other knucklehead? Shifty Shift.
Yeah, and he said
They're demonic. He said they're evil people.
he said I've dealt with the toughest
leaders in the
leaders in the world, and they paled in comparison to the people that are running our country.
Yep. The Democratic Party. The Democratic leadership is the most evil, power-hungry people he's ever sat in a room and
He
shook
said
a
it just
hand
like
with,
that too.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, he made it sound as if they took over North Korea tomorrow. No, he didn't say this. This is my interpretation. If those three took over North Korea tomorrow, they wouldn't change a damn thing.
That's right.
They just loved every minute of the power.
Yeah.
That really hit me when he said that. Really hit me when he said, being in a room with those people when they left, you knew they wouldn't honor a damn word we talked about.
And then there was a question about somebody asked if you could go back and change anything in the 4 years that you were president, what would be the one thing that you would change? And right away, he didn't have to think about it. He said, I would have changed some of the people that I appointed to certain cabinet
Yes.
positions.
And if I get in office again, I'll know who to appoint.
That's right. And I think a lot of that, if you read behind the scenes on that, because he never said this, some of those people are put there because they're owed political favors.
Correct.
Whether Trump wants them there or not, they say, sir,
You got to do it.
You got to do this. So, we talked about a multitude of things, and I think it lasted about an hour and a half.
Yeah, at
right?
least.
An hour and a half. And Buddy and I are looking at each other, and we're saying, there's no water.
No water. That was I was very disappointed in that. We had no water for an
Right.
hour and a half.
And then we finally get out of there, and we get into the general. They had a cocktail reception, so there was
Like
a couple
200 people.
There was a couple levels of donors, right? We got to the top tier, and so out there they're having this cocktail party, and we finally get our way to the bar, and we hadn't had anything to drink since we've been there. And all of a sudden, the Secret Service guy comes out. I just get to the bar.
We literally, they served in front of us.
2 glasses of red wine, please. The guy says, bar's closed.
Closed.
This guy
Very
gets
abruptly.
he comes between me and the bartender. Bar's closed. I thought he was joking.
Right.
I got
He wasn't.
I
We're
go-
dying of thirst.
Yeah. He goes, bar's closed. Then he kicked us out
Yeah. That was pretty wild.
because people the people were hanging around after they were
Lingering.
instructed to leave.
Well, doing pictures with Elise
And
Stefanik.
yes, right.
And by the way, does Trump love her or what?
Yeah, Elise is remarkable. She really is. She's also very humble, very smart, and she's got a lot of power, in the Republican Party.
Man, she apparently does.
Yeah.
Trump couldn't say enough about her.
All right. What I love about it, she's from your
Our
home
district,
up in Bolton, right?
Right.
I mean,
She's in our district.
That's the 21st district, I think, in upstate New York,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So I'm happy. I'm in Saratoga. I build in Saratoga County, so I'm happy to be one of her constituents and have her represent me in Washington. I certainly love that.
Yeah. She's come a long way in a short period of time. One thing that took me back, I'm a tall guy, 6'1". Trump's a monster. That guy's like a giant.
I know he is. Yeah.
Wait a minute, doing the pictures next to him. Like I was actually, I got caught off guard. I was a little intimidated standing next to him doing a picture. I didn't shake his. Did you shake his hand on the picture?
I did. Yeah.
I didn't shake his hand. I don't know
why. Not during the picture, just as I walked
up.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I walked away and he looked at me and he gave me the nod and said thank you. And I for some reason, you know why I didn't shake his hand? I'm like, oh, COVID, we can't shake his hand. But meanwhile, he shook everyone's hand when he walked in the room. I just had a moment where I was a little overwhelmed by him.
The last time that I was at Mar-a-Lago was probably about 7 or 8 years ago. I was at a Ferrari car show there, and they have served brunch on the patio overlooking the Intercoastal, and Trump had made his way to the event, and I was amazed because I was only, and this is before he announced that he was running for president. I was maybe 8 to 10 feet away from him, and I was kind of amazed at how he worked his way around the crowd and made it a point to go and talk to people and shake their hands
At the tables.
and politic with them. Yeah,
I heard that
Yep.
before he was president.
Yep.
When I shared with someone we were there, or someone saw that write-up and they called me, go, I didn't know you were at Mar-a-Lago, and they tell me stories because they're members there on how, listen, before he was a president or before he was a candidate, he would literally go we call that table touching.
Yep.
And then it hit me. He's in the hospitality business.
That's right.
I think what hit me more than anything is if all he had was Mar-a-Lago, that was his only asset, what the hell is he running for president for? That's what hit me. Like, why does he want that grief? And meanwhile, he owns a hell of a lot more than Mar-a-Lago, right? His assets are a lot bigger than that property, although that's a hell of a property.
Yeah, it's 11 acres from Intercoastal to the ocean in Palm Beach. And I heard he bought it in like the late 80s, early 90s. And I'm going off the top of my head. So
tax.
This might be misinformation a little bit, but it goes something like this. 8 million, 9 million. It was a disrepair.
I think it was even less.
He had to put a lot of money into it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then he built the ballroom off the side. I think the place is worth $450 million right
Imagine.
now. Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful spot. All right, well, this has been great. Bob, you want to hang out and do a little bonus session, Bob?
Yeah, I'd love to. I don't have anything to do this afternoon.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So stay tuned. Bob and I are going to take a little break here. We're going to do a little bonus episode and dive into some deeper business conversation.
Be great. Love
Does that
to.
work for you?
Yeah.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, you're listening to the Buddy Foy Jr. show. Appreciate you all for tuning in. If you don't listen to the bonus, we'll see you next week. And God bless. Have a great week.
Do you love listening to the Buddy Foy Jr. Show and want to hear his thoughts and commentary as news breaks? You can. Follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Buddy Foy Jr. That's at Buddy Foy Jr. So you can watch his short video clips, enjoy pictures he posts, and read his tweets. But he also wants to hear from you on whether or not you agree or disagree with him, what topics are most important to you, and what guests you'd like him to schedule for his show. Email him anytime at buddyfoyjr@gmail.com. That's buddyfoyjr@gmail.com, and he'll read and reply to as many as he can. If you've been a guest at the Chateau on the Lake or the Chateau Anna Maria and want to buy a gift certificate or souvenir, visit the website and click Shop to buy shirts, hats, coffee mugs, and more. Remember to follow Buddy on Twitter and Instagram at Buddy Foy Jr. or email him at buddyfoyjr@gmail.com.